So you were with Ramsey, and you still play with Ramsey here and there. I mean, now he doesn't play anymore.
Yeah, he's just retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, but at least he gets to retire on his own terms.
That's right.
That's most musicians don't get a chance to do that.
No, and he can pretty much do anything he wants. I mean, he can host a show. He could do anything he wants. You know, do a one-off thing here if he feels like it or whatever.
Yeah. But through Ramsey, I was also working on music. I was writing music, and so I said, okay, well, I need to get more into this composition thing. So my first composition, Ramsey was doing an album. He asked me, man, why don't you write a song for me? I said, I don't know, but I had been playing with him for a while. I knew how he played.
Yeah.
So I wrote the song based on the way that he played. And so once they heard the song and recorded it, it became like they put a single out, and they put this one single out there they were marketing. My song was on the other side. The radio stations wouldn't play the single that they wanted. They played my song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that song became like a big hit.
Yeah. What tune was it?
The first one, it was a song called Romance Me. And it was the first song that I ever wrote. So that was what inspired me to keep writing.
Yeah.
And so I just continued.
And that was the first song you ever wrote. You got a high bar now. Now what are you going to do? The next one better be.
I had to keep writing. I had to write 2 songs for the next record and stuff like that. So, but that introduced me into publishing.
Yeah.
And I started seeing that music is a business as well as an art. So, you have to kind of be versed in both parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the publishing thing back then was a really big thing because we didn't have internet and anything.
Right.
Nobody could, steal your stuff.
Right. So that was always the key too, right? I mean, if you wrote that tune, you wanted the publishing rights. The record label would probably always fight and want to get portions of it.
They would want to do that, but I was really blessed because somebody said, you got to get a music lawyer. You got to get an entertainment lawyer that knows this stuff. So I was able to get one, so I didn't have to give up any of my publishing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it was,
Is that during that time? Is that when you got signed too? Because you put out some solo recordings.
What happened
right?
was after that, I was running into people all over the place, and I started playing gigs when I wasn't with Ramsey. I was playing gigs locally, and I started putting things together for gigs, groups together, and stuff like that. And so I had enough stuff where I decided, okay, well, I'm going to take a break, So I left Ramsey, and I put a group together. And the first, first combinations, I tried things, but different players, they didn't function properly the way that I needed them to.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept trying different people until I found the formation that worked for me as a unit. And that was the group that had Bob Long and Frank Russell and Robert Gates in it.
Okay.
That was my regular group.
Yeah.
And so we were together for like a long time.
Yeah.
But that's when I started actually really writing a lot of original material with that group because I knew each player and I could write with them in mind and I knew how they would, what they would do to the music, how they would react to it.
Yeah.
And during that time, I started making demos. Saying like, okay, I know a little bit about how the music business works in the record industry. Mm-hmm. So I started making some demos and sending some demos out to some of the people I hadn't met before, and I got like lots of turned down letters. But, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Because you got to figure that, like there's 400 people sending stuff out all the time. You're just one of them. People don't personally know you. They don't have an personal investment in you.
Right. And this is when the record labels would
they
pick up an artist and put money behind it and all that. Yeah.
They still had a lot of power. But I kept the turn down letters because a couple of them were encouraging. I got one from Clive Davis,
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, and I got one from a couple of other people, But Clive's was really encouraging. It's just like, well, this is not here yet, but, keep working on it and keep us posted. Send us some more stuff. So anyway, after that, I finally got to a point where I said, okay, I'm going to just make my own recording. Maybe I'll connect with a marketing person.
Yeah.
So I found a marketing person. It was called Zebra Marketing. and person who owned the label, owned the marketing, was Ricky Schultz. Okay, and Ricky Schultz was marketing other people. He was doing ad, for other recording artists.
Mm-hmm.
Then he started a label.
He was like doing PR, right?
Yeah, he started with PR, and then he turned Zebra into a record label. So he's Zebra Records, and he had signed a couple of artists and stuff like that. So after trying to, getting all those letters and stuff like that, I sent the stuff to him. He thought it was fantastic. He says, "Don't worry about it, man. I'll sign you to Zebra Records." So I said, "Okay, we're going to have a done deal there. And what I'll do is I'll just wait, and I'll keep writing some more material." So I kept writing material, and we're doing gigs around Chicago with the band and stuff like that. And, I'm not hearing from him. So 3 months later, he said, "Bear with me. We're going to be cool. Just give me, another couple of months." So I said, "Okay, fine, as long as I know you're still on board."
Right. Because you're not shopping it anymore.
No, I'm not shopping it
Records,
anymore.
yeah.
Exactly. So, we waited, and I kept, perfecting material and stuff like that. So he calls me. He said, "Okay, man, I'm going to sign you, but I'm not going to sign you to Zebra." I said, "Well, you're not going to sign me to Zebra? That means you're not going to sign me or not?" He said, "No, I just got the job with MCA, and I'm the president of Impulse. We're reopening Impulse Records, and I'm the president of Impulse. I'm going to sign you to Impulse."
Wow.
So that was how.
So, that sounds better than Zebra. Sign me up.
So that's how it happened, and because he was with MCA, he had all of the powers to do everything he needed to do. And he put, not only that, he signed me. He signed Michael Brecker.
Right.
He signed Henry. What's the blind piano player?
Henry
Butler.
Right.
Henry Butler was the first one he had signed. And then he signed Pat Metheny's brother, is a trumpet player. I think his name is Mike Metheny.
Okay.
He signed him, and it was they were signing a bunch of people.
Well, and they have money behind that now.
Big
so
money.
now they can push, and when you would go out on tour, they probably set up all the PR around that. I mean, it's not like it is now. It's like back then, right?
What he did with my first record, he not only broke the record, but he put me on the map as an artist.
Wow.
That record got #1 in Billboard. We bypassed a whole bunch of people that was on the list, but it shot to #1. And then we had a lot of magazines that was reporting recordings and stuff like that. So they were reporting airplay and stuff like that. It was like the #1 thing. I mean, I was going out. During that time, I had rejoined Ramsey. Ramsey had asked me to do a Christmas concert here in Chicago. And so we did something. It was at that particular place. It was called Rick's Cafe.
Oh, Rick's Cafe, yeah.
Okay, so he had a gig at Rick's Cafe, and he wanted to augment and not just do trio. So he wanted to do some of his other stuff that had guitar on. I said, "Okay, ain't no problem,
Sure.
So I wasn't in the band. I was just doing the gig.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did that, and he loved it so much. He said, "Well, man, can you just come back and, you join the band?" I said, "Well, let me just see what's going on." Because at that particular time, the record was set to be released, and it got released a month after that. And we were on a gig, and we were in L.A., and they had posters and all kinds of stuff up. It was crazy. Everywhere that I could turn the radio on, in department stores everywhere, they were playing this record all over the country.
No kidding.
And at that particular time, they didn't have we didn't have like one company that owned all the radio stations. The DJs and programmers programmed based on what was in their market.
Mm-hmm.
So the record got, they played these cuts in Detroit. They played these in LA. They played these in Chicago. All over. So that means every cut on the record got played. And so everywhere I went, it was like he would have MCA people, reps showing up to every city that I went, setting up interviews and all kinds of other
And you're
stuff.
with Ramsey.
I was with Ramsey at the time, too. And Ramsey was like, what's going on here?
Thanks for bringing me on your PR tour here, Henry.
So it was intense, but it put me on the map to the point where, I owe Ricky Schultz my career because he did that.
Wow.
And then the next record exploded even more.
Wow. And I mean, for a jazz record back then, what are we talking about sales wise? I mean, it was like 50,000 or something, or
No, it was way more than that.
Oh, really? Like it was like
hundreds. It sold 76,000 copies in just L.A.
Wow.
That was just one city.
Yeah, man.
So
how does that open up your career then at that point? I mean, you're on the road with Ramsey, but I mean, when you get done with Ramsey, are you doing a national tour?
Here's the thing. So after that started happening, I'm back in Chicago. I'm doing gigs, because I start getting called. Promoters start calling and saying, like, hey, can you do this festival? Can you do that?
Sure, yeah.
Like that. So I got my own band. See, the thing about Ricky was when I did my record, they wanted to bring in all-stars. And I didn't want all-stars on my record. The reason why is because they don't know me.
Right.
It's just a recording session for them. But it's my music and it's being interpreted by the guys who've been playing it with me for 13 years.
Yeah.
So that meant a lot to me. So Ricky made sure that, hey, man, we're going to do it. He came to Chicago and saw us on us a gig. Came to one of our gigs and said, okay, we're done. That's a conversation we don't even have to have no more.
Wow.
So I was allowed to keep all my guys, and that was, and I produced it. So I had been around producers for a long time. So I had learned how to produce already.
Yeah, yeah. So you started blowing up. You started doing festivals and everything, and getting your.
And then Rick's Cafe again. Joe Williams came to Rick's Cafe. He had a week at Rick's Cafe. So he.
And you're in town, right? So I mean,
I was in town, but he was just playing with a trio.
Okay.
And he wanted to, add another instrument. First, he was thinking about saxophone. He says. So the drummer with him says, hey, man, why don't you think about adding a guitar? I got a great guitar player here that probably you would really like. And at the time, Norman Simmons was the band leader. He's a piano player.
Yep.
So Norman says, I don't care what he plays as long as he can help out with the rhythm section.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they called me, and I came in to play that week with Joe. And I had no idea what I was going in for because his book was this thick. And I'm saying like, oh, man, I better have my reading chops on something like that. So after we did like the first set, he said, really, this is, I really love the way that you play the music. You interpret the music. I said, well, thank you. I'm just trying to do everything that needs to be done. But he had his manager was there at the time, was in Chicago with him.
Mm-hmm.
John Levy, which turned out to be Joe's only manager and Nancy Wilson's manager too. And so the next night we went out and we played a set. And on this particular set, he called this song that a part of it was only he and I. And I had
the whole band drops out.
Yes. And I had no idea because I didn't know this song. So I'm trying to read it and stuff like that. And so, like, I'm kind of like trying to do stuff here and there, and he figured out, okay, he said he doesn't know the song, so it's something that. So what he did was he turned around and said, "Be cool, kid, you got the gig." And I said, okay. So I just, we went back and did it again.
Yeah. And
I just kind of like just followed him, whichever way he was gonna go. I just decided I was gonna go that way, and then it came out really good and stuff like that. So
be cool, kid. You got the gig.
I didn't even know you were auditioning. I wasn't auditioning for the gig. I had no idea about it. So after we finished that set, he said, "Yeah, man, he talked to my manager. We went up, talked to his manager. And he said, I want to add him with my group. I want him to be in my quartet." And so that was that. But I didn't know that John Levy had been hearing about the record blowing up.
Oh, really?
So when he gets back to L.A., he calls me and he says, "You got a manager?" I said, "No, I don't have anybody doing any of that stuff now." He said, "You want one?" I said, "Is it going to be you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, well, I would definitely like you to have it." So after he took over, so now he's managing me, Nancy, and Joe.
Wow.
And that's when stuff just took off, and a lot of stuff started happening then because he just knew everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
So he could call George Wein up. He could call other people up that, get us on festivals and things like that.
Sure.
So that's when stuff really started happening.
Wow. So you were touring with Joe?
Touring with Joe.
And then he was doing one-offs?
Started touring with Ramsey and started doing stuff on my own as well. Wow. So it's like, and during that time, Ramsey and Joe's schedule never conflicted one time.
Really?
Only one time out all that time.
Who went out?
Well, it actually, I did Joe's gig, and then I jumped on a plane to get to Florida, from L.A. to Florida, and then jumped on a bus, and then got a cab and made Ramsey's gig in time for sound check.
Oh, man.
So that was the only one time that it happened.
It's a double header.
Yeah, that was the only time that it happened.
So how long were you with Joe?
I was with Joe until he passed. I was with Joe for 13 years.
Now, you and I talked off camera, but I know this about you too, is that Joe talked you into singing and taught you how to sing. Is that right?
He started teaching me a singing technique.
Because you weren't singing at all, right?
I had been singing earlier when I was in that R&B band. I started singing then.
Okay.
But my voice was high then. I was 14 years old, so I had a voice like Smokey Robinson.
Right.
But when the time I hit 17, I woke up one morning and it was gone.
Yeah.
Only thing was left was what you see now.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't sing any of that high stuff anymore.
Yeah.
But I had been singing since then. But I had not been singing, like jazz, because I've been concentrating on just the guitar.
Right.
And when Joe heard me sing, that's when he actually started,
Were you just messing around one time and he heard you singing, or he made you do something?
He wouldn't go to the sound checks.
Oh, okay.
Because he just said, I already know what I sound like. I don't have to check it.
Right.
Just give me a microphone and I'm good.
Yeah.
But we still needed to go to the band, needed to go to sound check. So I checked the microphones for him, and so I started singing some of his songs just so we could get the sound right.
Yeah.
And he came to sound check one day because we were playing in a place that actually was in a hotel. Mm-hmm. So he came down one day. He was passing by from lunch and heard me singing. And he never mentioned it to me until later. And he says, you know what? You need to start making that expression that part of yourself. I said, why would I do that? I'm playing with you. He said, it's not just me. Mm-hmm. He said, that's the part of your voice that you're ignoring. And so that's when he started, pushing me to sing. And it hit a high point when we were on a cruise one night and we were performing. And he had the song he used to do that God gave him, Here's to Life. Mm-hmm. And so he started at this end of the stage, and he starts singing Here's to Life, and then he starts walking towards me. I'm on the other end of the stage with the piano player. And he gets past the first verse, and then when he gets to the second verse, he puts the microphone in front of my mouth. And the place is packed. And I'm going like, what? And I'm looking at Norman, and Norman says, Henry, sing. So I started singing the rest of the song. And from that night on, we started doing it as a duet.
Oh, yeah.
He would call it every night, and we would do it as a duet.
Wow. People probably went nuts, right? I mean, they went crazy.
Well, yeah, because they didn't expect any, they certainly didn't expect the voice to come out of me.
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty intense.
Was he teaching you phrasing, or were you already cool with phrasing?
Yes, he was teaching me phrasing. He was teaching me breathing. He was teaching me tonal techniques as well. And Nancy taught me a bunch of stuff too about phrasing and the tone of the voice.
You started working with Nancy because your manager was her manager?
I was seeing. I met Nancy when I was on gigs with Ramsey.
Oh, okay.
Because
they used to do gigs together, right?
Yeah, and not only that, Ramsey's first manager was John Levy as well.
This guy gets around, huh?
Yeah, well, he was the manager for everybody back. He was Wes's only manager, Cannonball. He had all of the main acts.
Wow.
And he would have them all doing stuff.
Yeah.
But he had the power at the time to just make a phone call and make a recording session happen in 3 days.
Wow. Those guys aren't around anymore.
No.
No.
And the record industry doesn't act like that anymore.
But so Nancy heard you with Ramsey, obviously you collaborated a little bit when you guys were playing together, and then she called you.
I did some playing, on some of the things that we would do, and there was one night in Chicago at Orchestra Hall where I played with all three of them. So I did a set with Nancy with a big band, did a set with Ramsey, and did a set with Joe, all in one day. So that was here in Chicago.
Wow.
But Nancy, we've been on each other, had been on each other for a long, long time since meeting and stuff like that. And we would always cross paths because either she was, we were opening for her or doing shows with her or something like that. So anyway, she was at Ravinia. And I told her, I said, I had another record I was working on with my organ band. And so I said, well, Nancy, I would really love if you could, do a couple of songs with me on this recording. She said, "Oh, no problem at all. I'll definitely do a couple on there."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, we got the same manager, so we can work it out."
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, "But I want you to do like some duets with me." And so she thought me playing guitar. I said, "No, I want you to sing with me." She said, "You sing?" I said, "Yeah, kinda." She said, "Well, I had to hear you first." So she came. We were working at Andy's on Wednesday nights. And
that's when you had the Organ Express, right? Yeah.
And so she came.
She came to Andy's?
She took a limo to Andy's. And she came to see me. And when she heard me singing, she jumped up out of her seat and was like applauding and all. I mean, it was
wow.
She went off. And before she left, she said, we're definitely going to do this. So that's how we ended up in the studio. But during that time, we were choosing the material and stuff like that, and I was asking her about her approach. It's like, how would you approach this? How would you approach that? Stuff like that. That's when she started sharing a whole lot of stuff about phrasing, how she looks at songs, how she became a storyteller.
Yeah.
And, just telling me, don't ever sing songs that you don't like. Because if you don't like them, how do you think you're going to hide that from the audience?
Yep.
So that's why when you tell a story, you relate to that story.
Yeah.
People with not great voices are great performers because they know how to tell a story. You don't have to have an operatic voice to be able to tell a story.
Mm-hmm. Well, with playing guitar and singing, is the phrasing different?
Yes.
I mean, because I was kind of shocked when you said Joe Williams helped you with your phrasing, and then I'm hearing Nancy helped you with your phrasing. You're a guitar player, you're swinging, you're doing everything, but it's different then, huh?
It's totally different because if you, when you start thinking about, like, when I was coming up, we learned the words to the song. So when we played a song, we kind of know what the song was about. And I came up, they still had jukeboxes in the places. So every club had a jukebox in it.
Yeah.
With all of these songs on it.
Well, they still do. We just use our phone, right?
Right now, you carry one with you, right? but the whole point is, it's like when you are playing a song as an instrumentalist and you know the song, you can do a better job because you're not going to play it the way that the music is written. It's not actually written in that way. It's just written as a map for you to be able to figure out what the story is. Here's the notes of the melody.
Yeah.
But you're not going to interpret it that way. That's why you need to know about phrasing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started learning that from them, it changed my playing too. It changed my playing to make it more vocal-like, more song-like. So now when I phrase because I'm singing it in my head. So my phrasing and the timing of it as if I was speaking words as opposed to just playing notes.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like every instrumentalist should have that background somehow, right?
All the old guys did.
Yeah. They all knew the words.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all knew that stuff. So you're going through, you're playing with Nancy, you're doing all this stuff, but you also have your own projects. And let's jump up to the present time now. You recently put out through a company. You have a video guitar lesson series, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that because I think it's really interesting. I've seen some of them up on YouTube. I mean, you know, if I played guitar, I'd want to watch it. I play drums, but I still got something out of it. But it's really well done, and it sounds to me like they really have you explaining how you're playing, how you're thinking about stuff. Which, you know, that to me, if you're a young musician or even an accomplished musician, it's always interesting to find out what that person that you're listening to really is thinking about when they're doing it. Is that what drew you to this series, because it's so well done like that?
The guy who owns the company, who started the company, I had known him for years, Brad Winkos, and we were always talking about doing something. But he started his company a long time ago, before the internet was actually taking hold. But then, as it went along, he started being able to get the rights to a lot of stuff, and he started producing content. And he started understanding what the internet could do for him. It leveled the playing field. And now they're the biggest online guitar source online, period.
What's the name?
They're called TrueFire.com.
TrueFire.com.
Yeah. And so we just, we were talking about doing stuff a long time ago. And a year would go by and we'll say, okay, well, maybe we'll figure out some way we'll do it or something like that. But last year was a time when, you know, I figured, okay, I got the time to do this right now. And I'm just saying, who wants another guitar, you know, video or another instructional thing or something like that? And he was saying to me, he said, look, let's just make it about the way that you teach, the way that you see things musically. And so that intrigued me because, you know, I also teach at Roosevelt University. And the guitar students that I come in contact with, what I understand about them now is every person processes information differently. You can't put them into a one-size-fits-all because people don't hear and play the same way. So when I teach each student, I'm teaching them according to the way that he processes information. And he can look at and see how I process information, and if we'll work on what those things he can use.
Right.
And if I learn how he does it, then I already speak his language now.
Yeah.
So TrueFire came out of that. It's like a lot of guitar players get frustrated because the moment you say something about jazz, then it's like this whole nother animal.
Right.
And if you come from the backgrounds that you and I come from, we play all kinds of music. So it's not just jazz, it's just a music background. And so that's what they're responding to.
Yep.
And I think that from the feedback that I've got from a lot of the people on there, they like it because they can walk away from one lesson being able to do something that they couldn't do before.
Yeah.
And what I'm teaching actually is not on music. It's just how you play guitar. You can use this for any music.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key. It kind of goes back to where we started when you were doing the R&B stuff, you're doing the jazz and everything else. I mean, you're influenced by so many people. You're at Roosevelt now. You put out the video thing. But it all kind of relates back where, you know, I mean, these young guys that are coming up, I mean, I don't even want to think how young they are right now, because when I see people, I'm just like, when were you born?
I know.
I didn't think it would ever get to that point, but it's at that point. But I'm always astonished. But I mean, they're influenced by so many different styles. You know, the R&B, the funk, the hip hop, rap, everything else, and jazz, and they're incorporating all that into their music. And I think that, I mean, you tell me. I mean, as a teacher, and all the different styles and all the different artists and all the different things that you have done, you can probably totally relate to where they're coming from. You go, okay, I'm not going to force feed this to you. This is what you can do with the music. And this is, because the whole point of jazz, isn't it, is taking it, continuing it to grow and push forward.
Well, the thing is it's like all music is a language.
Yeah.
You know, so you got a certain, if you think about R&B, there's certain parts of R&B is just different, how would you say, that's a language. So it's a certain part of it. If you play a lick, you know, from My Girl, that's a certain language, okay? Or if you're playing like rock, you know, chords are, you know, like playing power chords. They're not power chords, but they just call them that. But there's just nothing but, you know, major and minor chords.
Right.
Okay, so if you understand that that's just all it is, that allows you to play every kind of music. And every music has a 2-5-1 in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's in every music. So if you master that, you can play any music at all. And you just look at it as another color. But every music is a language, and it has dialects.
Yeah.
And if you look at it as a language, then we all speak English, but we all say something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I just would tell them, I said, like, look, if you started out playing R&B, why can't you incorporate what you learn with something else that you're going to learn? You know, it's still just music. You know, it's another dialect that you want to learn that dialect, but it's still just music.
Yeah.
So if I can, you know, impart that to them, it gives them confidence to know that they don't have to throw out everything that they've learned. So I run into the ones who will look at, you know, what kind of scale are you playing there? You know what? And I just said, man, it's just music. It's just like, why is it that when you playing R&B, you playing rock, you playing funk, nobody ever asks you what kind of scale you playing? But the moment you start playing jazz, everybody, what kind of scale is that? Just, dude, it's just a song. You know, you got to look at it the same way that you looked at everything else.
Yeah.
Music is not scales. Scales is just the alphabets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you still have to put the words together, and those words got to be turned into sentence. Then the sentence got to be turned into paragraphs. And you have to do that with every genre.
You know, the way you say that makes total sense to me because, I mean, when I was a young jazz musician and I'm coming up and, you know, you start listening to guys pontificate about stuff, you can get overwhelmed and you're just like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't even bother with this. I don't have the time to even learn how to even get good at this or anything because it can just overwhelm you if you start looking at the scope. But the way you're describing it, yeah, it's just music.
Yeah.
You're just applying things and you're adding to what you already know. It makes total sense.
It's frustrating to a lot of guitar players because they think that there's some sort of magic secret to it. And it's like, no. If you learned how to play some Led Zeppelin licks or something like that, you can transform that into something else. You can do this over there. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, that system that you use to learn, why should you throw out? It's your system. If it worked for you to get you this far, then you use it to get further.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sold. I'm going to take up guitar. I'm in. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here, Henry. I mean, this has been fantastic. Do you have anything coming up that we should talk about? I think, are you recording a new anything coming up? Just writing material and stuff.
As you know, the platform has changed drastically.
Yes.
You know, they don't do CDs no more.
No.
You know, so now you got to start thinking about, okay, I'm going to start releasing singles, and I'm going to start, you know, like streaming them or whatever. You know, the whole CD thing is over with unless you got some place in your garage you can just store them.
You need to insulate something. Well, you can get all the information at henryjohnsonjazz.com. And, of course, follow up with him because he's got a lot of different things coming up, and he's always playing different festivals. And, obviously, this is coming out in February, so your summer's probably going to get busy.
Yeah.
He's always doing dates. He's at Winter's Jazz Club here and there. He's at Hyde Park Jazz Society. I'm just talking about the ones in Chicago. So check all that out. Of course, all the information for the entire issue, wherever you're watching this interview, is at chicagojazzmagazine.com. Really appreciate you watching it. And Henry, again, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And we'll see you again next month on Chicago Jazz Magazine.